Every night, you make promises to a version of yourself that barely exists in the morning. You set an alarm for 6 a.m., wake up early, exercise, do the laundry, or maybe finish that pending task before heading to work. At that moment, everything feels perfectly under control, like your life is finally aligning with your intentions. 6 a.m. arrives. The alarm goes off, and the very first thing you do is snooze it. Let me sleep for just 30 more minutes. The urgency you felt the night before fades away. The plans still make sense logically, but emotionally, they no longer feel important enough to follow through. And why is it this way? Why are we less likely to follow through on plans we made in advance? Why does the future we carefully designed feel negotiable at the moment we're standing in it? This is the result of something called dynamic inconsistency, popularly known as the pre-commitment problem. Dynamic inconsistency is the tendency to make plans for the future that you systematically override the moment that future arrives, as if the person who planned and the person who acted were two separate individuals. The planner functions like a principal, the doer functions like an agent who has to execute in the present. Conflict arises because the individual recognizes their own weaknesses. Plans made in advance are consistently broken because temptation becomes too great. What the person knows to be their best long-run interests conflicts with their short-run desires. There is no single you making decisions over time. The you that makes a New Year's resolution and the you that abandons it in February are not the same agent with weakened resolve. The resolution maker was planning on behalf of a future self who turned out to have different preferences. Economists model this as a self divided in time, a sequence of selves, each inheriting the plans of the last, and each retaining the right to revise them. There is no master you adjudicating between the night version and the morning version. There is only whoever shows up, and whoever shows up is almost always the one who wants less. The reason has to do with how we actually discount the future. We like to believe our future costs and rewards are weighed consistently, that the sacrifice we're willing to make tonight for tomorrow's version of ourselves holds its value through the night. We discount the near future steeply and the far future gently. The gap between now and 1 hour from now feels enormous. The gap between 6 months and 7 months feels like almost nothing, which means the moment tomorrow becomes today, everything recalculates. This is a structural feature of how the mind prices time. There are two kinds of people navigating this. The first kind is what economists call the naïfs. They genuinely believe that tomorrow they will follow through. They set the alarm with full sincerity. They do not anticipate the revision. Every morning is a surprise. Every broken promise is experienced as a one-time failure rather than a pattern, which means they never build the defenses that might actually help them. The second kind is sophisticates. They know exactly what they're going to do. They set the alarm knowing, somewhere beneath the optimism, the snooze button will win, and this knowledge doesn't save them. In some cases, it makes things worse. Because a person who correctly predicts their own future weakness stops holding out. If you know you'll give in eventually, the rational move is to give in now, before the pretense of resistance costs you anything. Sophistication, in this framework, is not the same as self-control. It is just a more lucid form of the same surrender. Every promise you make to your future self is, in the end, a promise made to a stranger. David Hume, in his book, A Treatise of Human Nature, wrote, "For my part, when I enter most intimately into what I call myself, I always stumble on some particular perception or other, of heat or cold, light or shade, love or hatred, pain or pleasure. I never can catch myself at any time without a perception, and never can observe anything but the perception." The mind is a kind of theatre, where several perceptions successively make their appearance, pass, repass, glide away, and mingle in an infinite variety of postures and situations. Hume denied that we have direct experience of a unified self. When looking inwardly, we find only a bundle of perceptions succeeding each other with inconceivable rapidity, in perpetual flux and movement. The self you feel continuous with is not a substance. It is a narrative the mind constructs over a parade of disconnected impressions. Derek Parfit, in his book, Reasons and Persons, wrote, "We ought not to do to our future selves what it would be wrong to do to other people. I believe that most of us have false beliefs about our own nature and our identity over time, and that when we see the truth, we ought to change some of our beliefs about what we have reason to do." How much you owe your future self scales with how psychologically connected you are to them. A future self you barely resemble is almost a stranger, which gives the night you a weaker claim over the morning you than we ordinarily assume. The self that makes plans and the self that executes them are never quite the same person. That gap is not a character flaw, it is the basic condition of being a creature that exists in time. You are not one person struggling with discipline, you are multiple people negotiating across time, with no neutral arbiter and no final vote. The question dynamic inconsistency leaves you with is not how to win that negotiation. It is whether you ever understood who you were negotiating with.